Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth. This program features in-depth conversations with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile Here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
Welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth, live radio at its best here on KUNX Digital Broadcasting, Monday nights, 7 to 9, or whenever you happen to be watching. In real time here, it is October, a week and a half or so from, a week and a half from Halloween. We have a guest tonight who I think I've had on the show more than anyone else, because I rely on his thoughts, observations, and opinion about where we are going in the world of UFO studies and what's going on in the House of Representatives. Stephen Bassett is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, also known as PRG, founded in 1996 to end a government-imposed embargo on the truth behind extraterrestrial-related phenomena. Steve has spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of disclosure, and let's define that as the formal confirmation by heads of state of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. Steve has given more than 1,200 radio and television interviews, with PRG's advocacy work extensively covered by national and international media. And international media, including CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, The Washington Post, and The New York Times. In 2013, the Paradigm Research Group organized and conducted a citizen hearing on disclosure at the National Press Club in Washington. Lasted 5 days. And it injected the ET issue into, also injecting the ET issue into the presidential campaign of 2016. Bassett is also co-founder of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing together relevant researchers, authors, abductees, and experiencers with content creators working across every aspect of the global entertainment spectrum. And Stephen Bassett, welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth, my friend.
Yes, sir. It's good to be back with you, Peter, as always. I'm in a different location tonight than usual, so I have no books. But
you are in Washington tonight?
No, I'm in the National Press Building where my office is, but I'm getting a new Wi-Fi. I'm switching Wi-Fi providers, and it turned out to be a pretty big deal. They won't finish up till tomorrow, and it's been more than that. But I'm saving $1,400 a month. Hello, and so I'm doing this in the lounge. Now, there's something you need to know. If anybody's wondering what's going on, I'm not suffering from some sort of brain disorder or anything. It's just that the building has a problem, and then when people come and go during this time of year, mosquitoes get in, okay? And they just head straight for the lounge. They're smart mosquitoes. They know what they're doing. This is where some food is. This is where the people are. And this is a very nice lounge. I can show it to you. It's just really wonderful. Beautiful.
Yes. Damn.
Right? Okay, fine. And so I've had to work here a number of nights. I'm getting eaten alive. Okay, it's driving me crazy. And so I was going to go get some insect repellent to spray it on me, which some people are doing, just keep them away. But I'm going to be back in the office tomorrow, so I didn't do that. However, what I'm going to be doing is if I see a mosquito, I'm going to kill it. Right, so you're going to see me trying to kill mosquitoes most of the evening. We'll see how that goes, and that's what's happening. It's not that I have Tourette syndrome or whatever.
You know, if you had managed to get hold of some mosquito netting, this whole thing would have had kind of a South Pacific sort of imperialist feel. Well, perhaps next time.
I'm sure the security guy would enjoy that. The guy over in the wall with the mosquito netting up. And you're going, okay, it's time to get into action. So nevertheless, here we are. This isn't bad. It's not bad. It's okay. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a thing tonight.
Please.
And here's what I'm talking about. The political situation is getting worse. I don't think anybody's shocked at that. Okay. Every day, something new, something ever, right? Something, whatever. Hate it, love it, doesn't matter. It's sucking up the news media. It's taking everybody's attention and what have you. It's creating a lot of chaos. Today, they started tearing down one of the walls of the White House. No big deal. No big deal. Happens all the time. So that's happening. And National Guard are going to be staying here through the end of the year, apparently. And a bunch of others are heading to Portland or whatever. Okay. So look, it's intense. The government is shut down 20 days now. It may not open for another 10 or 15 days. So see how that goes. So whatever. Our issue doesn't really have much to do with any of that. It is transcendent. It's a transcendent issue of global, even galactic proportions.
Yes.
And we are pursuing a fundamental truth and a fundamental prize in this activist movement, which is the end of the truth embargo and confirmation of the extraterrestrial or technologically advanced non-human presence, which will change everything and help us maybe get to a place we need to get. Any place but this would be good. And so it's a big deal. It's an activist movement, which is now full-blown international, serious movement, I assure you. It hasn't always been viewed that way, but increasingly it is viewed that way, though not everybody fully grasps that.
Yes.
All right. And I am an activist. I'm not a researcher. I'm not a witness. I've never had a classification status job in the government. Okay. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a researcher. Okay. I'm not a contactee. Don't have that privilege. Don't have that honor. I am an activist. I do what activists do. And so things have slowed down. Things have slowed down because of many of the things that we've been talking about. Understandable. However, we are still making progress and haven't stopped making progress since 2017. Let me put it this way. We've always been making progress, but for a lot of those years from 47, there were years between 47, you couldn't find it, you couldn't measure it. It was there. It was like the quantum level, right? The quantum level of progress. But it was always moving forward in some way or another. There was always something happening that pointed in the right direction. But after 17, we really picked up speed and we were really rocking for a while. And then things have slowed down for a number of reasons. Happy to go into them in detail. But here is my concern. There's this meme going around, starting to go around, get a little traction on the internet, that we're at the end of a cycle. That this movement, the process of getting the truth embargo ending, is a kind of a cyclical thing. You go through a cycle and you wait for the next cycle and so forth. And I'm not on board with this, to say the least. Not on board with this at all. Got it, maybe. So what's my point? This idea that we're ending a cycle and then in some undetermined time in the future we'll start up again has serious problems for the issue. And let me just list some of them.
Please.
And this happens with the slowdown, right? I mean, the slowdown also generates these problems I'm about to mention. But again, the cycle concept just piles on to that. And we don't want to do that. So what am I talking about? So when things slow down, and they have, right? That is a signal for the skeptics, the debunkers, and the skeptibunkers to come out and play, right? And of course, now they have the biggest play yard in the world. And but they used to do it even back 50 years ago. But now they can really come out and play. And so they start coming out and play, and they start pointing out that, yeah, see, we told you, it's all a joke. These people are grifters and scammers. They vetted the whole damn thing. There's nothing, no truth to it all, right? All right, and just dumping on everybody and anybody they want to dump on. All right, that's not good. Right? I mean, they're going to do it. That doesn't mean we have to. That we have to recognize that.
Of course.
And when and how you deal with that is you simply press on. You don't engage them. You don't start debating them on the issue. God knows. You just keep pressing on to get to the prize. Okay. Now the other problem is that when things slow down, there are a lot of people out there. They're not in the movement per se. And not everybody can be in the movement. How many researchers can we handle? How many activists? There are a hell of a lot more activists than they used to be.
Yep.
But they get frustrated. They get angry. You know, what's happening? We're making progress. Why aren't we now? What's going on? They get frustrated and they start fighting with each other. They get, and then the debunkers call them an idiot and they're mad. So they get into a thing. They get into a flame war.
Right.
On it. None of this is really helpful. All right. Also, to the extent of all the people that need to be involved and are involved in this issue now to one degree or another, which includes actual members of Congress, some of their staff, okay, lots of journalists, all right,
Some academics.
All the people that are involved when we're engaging this issue, and there's now a lot of them, all of these people, all right, they step back, right? And they start getting attacked as well. And so generally it feeds on itself. That's not good. Like that. All right. And it emboldens the managers of the truth embargo, right? They see a slowdown. It's like that, they're like Nazi submarines. They see a ship in the Armada, whatever the hell, slow down. They go, they get in position. They torpedo that sucker. All right, that's what that was attempted by the DoD with the Wall Street Journal articles in June.
That's right.
They were torpedoes designed to take advantage of the situation so they could sink a ship. Blew up in their face. Right, because things were cooking back then still, right? We had a hearing after that. And so anything that adds, that exacerbates the coming and going, the up and the down process unnecessarily, I'm sorry, I'm not on board. And this cycle thing, forget about it.
Yeah.
All right, forget about it. You don't cycle an activist movement. There is only one example of an activist movement of great import that ever stood down for a while because they had to wait for something else to happen. And it was a very noble thing. It was the right thing to do. The Indian people wanted their independence from Britain. And they had one hell of a movement going, and they had an extraordinary leader with Gandhi. And they were making a lot of progress. And then Britain declared war on Germany and started what is entering World War II. And the leaders of that movement rightly understood that this is totally inappropriate for them to be putting a lot of pressure on British rule in India. The war could even come to India. And so they stood down. That doesn't mean a few people weren't doing something. It just means that they stood down and they did not take it up. That is the only example that I know of in the history of major activist movements, period. All right. So you never stand down on a cause of this importance. You are relentless, right? You keep recruiting. You keep trying to get whatever you need to get, witnesses and this and that and more hearings. And you put out a citizens movement like the New Paradigm Institute has got a citizen for disclosure movement. And I've got some progress, some things I may be doing soon. And other entities are turning up and there's conferences coming up. You'd never, ever stop, right? Because it's too important. You do not give any yards up intentionally. Now, one of the things I'm hearing is that the cycle is ending because we've run out of witnesses. No, we haven't, right? The availability maybe has gone down, and they're getting some concern from witnesses that are afraid to come forward right now because they're a little more concerned. They don't like the environment. I appreciate that. They always have a little concern, but now the political situation where you've got, the two parties in a death match and they're going after each other and taking them to jail and whatever the hell. Yeah. So they've kind of stepped back. But there are plenty of witnesses. I have 3 or 4 that I could put in front of a hearing next week, and they're very important witnesses. And just about every member of the task force knows this. All right. And so again, there are witnesses. If you want to get, they can be gotten. All right. In terms of media coverage, right? The media is standing. The media's not standing down. The media goes. I mean, it has fallen off some, right? But I've got a print media archive, and there's still hundreds of articles this year. We're up to about 400 or 500, 8,000 in the last 7 years. And these articles are covering everything that happens. All right. And it may have slowed down a little because the overall political arena has kind of taken their attention away. We've got wars. We've got, all kinds of awfulness out there. And that occasionally takes them away. But they're never going to leave this issue. They are never going to give up on this issue. And the internet is never going to back off this issue, I assure you. And so the media there's no cycle there. It's just slowed down a little bit. Yeah. They're not going to stop. But if they think that the movement is going to take a vacation, they may say, well, let's focus on some other things. No, not at all. And importantly, I've met with Burleson. He's serious and he wants to move forward on this issue, and he may hold another hearing. I consider him the leader on this issue right now. He's kind of moved to the front, and he's been much more. He's been quite active and quite open about it. He's an ideal person to lead this thing. He's a very reasonable, thoughtful, good guy. He doesn't provoke to no end. He's well liked, and he's absolutely safe in his district. He could not be primaried, no way. And so I think he's emerging as the leader. Good for him. I've met him a couple of times, and he gave Bob Salas an excellent interview, which is up online. That just happened, right? And so Luna has not stepped down. She's pushing this issue still, but a lot of other things are happening, right? And so she's got stuff coming out in JFK, and she's got some Epstein stuff that's kind of moving around, and this is happening. And so this issue is having to compete with these other things. But she's still committed. Burchett's still committed. He's going to say something about once a week or once every 2 weeks, right? And I think the last one was dad gum something. I forget what it was. But the moment he says dad gum, something good's coming from him. Yeah. And so they're not stepping down. Schumer has been, has done things. And what kind of triggered, I think, this concept of this, there's a cycle ending and we got to wait for the next cycle, is the failure of the UAP Disclosure Act again. In the sense that it was not included in the NDAA. Okay, I get that. But if you know the history of this, that's not how you look at it. Here's the history of this. 2 solid pieces of legislation followed by the UAP Disclosure Act submission in 2023 by the Senate minority leader, right? And the Senate majority leader. No, the Senate minority leader. Senate minority, a major player, right? Schumer, and then Rounds, who is a Republican. And they submitted the ultimate bill. It is the disclosure bill, right? It is an catastrophic disclosure bill because it does everything the way it's supposed to be. It's a responsible, thoughtful, reasonable, balanced approach for a responsible bringing forward of everything the government knows in a reasonable and timely fashion, with the obvious stuff first, less obvious thought out, some stuff held back, but whatever, it's all coming out. In other words, the door is open to the giant vault, that one where they put the Ark of the Covenant at the end of that movie, right? They've opened the door, and you're going to start pulling that stuff out. There's a lot of stuff in there. They put that bill in, and it was so powerful and so important that a very transparent, obvious effort was made by the exact people you would expect to reduce its power. And so they cut the bill in half, but they left a substantial bill there that essentially represented the fundamentals of the bill. They just made it a lot more difficult for them to, go out and, punch it out. But it got passed. That was the third bill. And then Schumer said he wasn't done. He did that he and Rounds read into the record of the Senate that they weren't done. They were going to continue to do this. The next year, he submitted the same damn bill, the exact same bill, which is not what you see. Right? Well, I think maybe it happens once in a while. Normally make some changes to try to make it all work. No, it's the exact same bill. Puts it in there, all right? But this time, instead of putting it in as directly into the NDAA, so it has to be reconciled if there's an issue with the House, they put it in as an amendment, okay? And the amendment transcends that process and ultimately has to be voted up or down. But, all right, what happened was the amendment process has certain characteristics, which includes the ability for it to be blocked by certain key chairmen of certain committees. And one of those chairmen actually put the block in. And so they decided they knew that fighting that block was going to be hopeless. And so they gracefully exited, not by declaring defeat. They simply announced that a staffer neglected to get the thing submitted to the right the right people, the right committee in time, and it lost its slot. Okay, fine. No problem with that. And so we go to the next year. And what do they do the next year? They submit it again. All right? They submit it again. Schumer and Rounds, maybe someone else, but them, submit the exact same bill again, making a very clear statement. We're not going to settle for anything less than this, all right? And, of course, every time they did this, they generated, 50, 60, 70 mainstream articles. They're all on my website. Go to my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, under projects. Read them all. Print Media Archive. So they're generating all this press and generating interest, which is one of the reasons we end up getting more hearings, all right? And so we got hearings happening. We have the bill being resubmitted. Now, this last time, what happened is that it goes, obviously the political situation is even hotter, even more partisan than ever. They submitted the bill as an amendment. And so the amendment goes over. Well, apparently there were something like 1,000 amendments. And so what happens is the staff, not the members, but the staff have got to go through and mark all these things up. Meaning they've got they've got to make sure this, that, and everything is right. And it's a difficult task, and they've got 1,000 of them. And so, interestingly enough, when they got to that bill, they found all kinds of little things that wasn't needed to be whatever, this and that, changed and what have you before it could be submitted. And it didn't get submitted into the House. Okay, fine. So that is another way they were able to block it. I think they'll submit the damn bill again next year. All right. If we haven't had disclosure by then. Okay. And so that's what has happened with the UAP Disclosure Act. So all those debunkers out there that are going, hallelujah, hallelujah, they voted that stupid bill down, proving once and for all there's no ETs here. And whatever else they want to do. And now they can do a lot of stuff. There's all kinds of AI videos, including friends of ours. And there's also some cartoon thingies. I finally made it into a cartoon thingy, but it was relatively positive. I was good. But if you, because I'm basically a positive guy and I'm nonpartisan. I do never fight on the web. I never argue. I certainly never criticize people on the web, virtually never. And if it is, it's kind of like, a little humor. I try to be a good guy because I know the power of the net. And so, but others they're getting the treatment. All right. That's cool. So the situation now is that more hearings are coming. Witnesses are going to be available unless you stop looking for them. All right. And ultimately, the UAP Disclosure Act is the process that is the bill that allows everything to happen. We don't really need any more legislation beyond that, except maybe some enhancements in witness protection. That's easy to do. It's a straight bill. Possibly a little amnesty action, whatever the hell, a little refinements there to protect witnesses. That's not hard to do, right? But other than that, there's not much more needed, except, of course, the president's got to come out and disclose, which brings me to this. in terms of those that are, climbing on the cycle train. There is plenty of evidence and indications that the idea of Trump disclosing is being kicked around in the White House. Okay. It is in play in the White House. You don't have to search very hard to find that out. I'm not going to go through it tonight. We don't have enough time. I've done it before on dozens of other podcasts. And so it is in play. And something has been pointed out in various venues, including me, but venues, I think, stronger than me, more known than me, is that if the president were to do this, it would be an extraordinary thing. It would be an unbelievable accomplishment that would garnish great worldwide praise and maybe a prize or two. And that's not a joke. That's true. And so there's that. All right. And so all I'm saying is there's no cycle. All there is to slow down. But the activists, and I include me there, we are not going to stop.
Yeah.
We are never going to stop. We're not going to take a vacation, right? We're going to be relentless until we get the prize. And the prize is formal confirmation of the ET presence. Nothing less than that. And so any of the embargo managers or anyone serving the embargo managers that think they can kind of slip this, by themselves enough time so they're either dead or not working for the government, when it finally happens, they don't have to answer any awkward questions. Forget about it, right? And keep in mind, there are other heads of state that could give a damn about your cycles or a damn about your problems or your uncomfortability with this issue. There are other heads of state that could come out and do it tomorrow, in which case, not only have you got disclosure, but it didn't come from you, and you're going to have to answer for that. And so your life is not going to get better. It's going to get even worse than if you do it. So that's the message I want to convey at this point, and I'm happy to take questions from the audience, which, of course, is you.
The idea of this false narrative of a cycle ending. We've seen this going back to the analog days in the media with this subject. Also, there are always people in the work who are more interested in content, whatever it may happen to be, even if it's just stirring things up or going off on a tangent or seeming to have an original idea when it's really not, just to keep things going and keep themselves front and center. Do you think, Steve, that given this completely unique moment that we are all living through in terms of a great deal of content and a great deal of distraction within government and surrounding government in this country at the time, that there would be maybe perhaps some extra consideration going on in the office of the president of China, the office of the president of this, I was going to say the Soviet Union, of Russia, that perhaps for their own reasons, because they're sitting on some of the same material that we are. I think the assumption that because the cover-up started in America, it's going to end in America, and it may well, that it may not. And that for their own political reasons, one of those world leaders might say, you know what, this is as good a time as any to release what we have, be the ones who have the bragging rights on it, and let the chips fall where they may. What do you think?
I have no way of knowing. I know that China seems to enjoy getting one up on us in a lot of areas. That's obvious. Now we enjoy getting get something up on them, right? There's been a one-upson thing going on here for some time, and Russia absolutely enjoys it. We have irritated Russia a lot. Now, I'm not saying good. Was it a good idea? Bad? I'm just saying we irritated them. That's self-evident, and we've certainly irritated China. These are the two major powers. India is the wild card. All right, but we irritated them too. And so the idea that one of those leaders say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go down in history, and my country is going to go down in history as being the country that finally ended an era and started a new era in the history of the human race. And anybody in the White House or anybody else in this country that think that can't happen because we run the world, they need to, I don't know, take a Xanax, go for a vacation, right? Because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And so that is a possibility, and I throw that out there. By the way, I left out something important in terms of the effect of this, any kind of unnecessary slowing down. And that's this. When this happens, invariably, a lot of the good people in this field, many of which you and I know, they go, oh, it's slowed down again. All right, we got to get it going. We got to investigate some more cases. We got to reinvestigate some cases. We got to get some more proof together here, right? We got to find proof. Get that out there, and that'll get things going again. Now, it won't. It'll just be a waste of your time. We've already proven it. It's been proven for decades, right? You want to go and prove the world is round, not flat? Fine, go for it. Spend your time. And so good people instead wasting time and money trying to pile more proof on top of more proof when the government could give a damn if you piled the proof up and filled up the entire Washington Commanders stadium with it. They would care less.
Yeah.
It is a political decision. It includes some national security, some personal self-interest, some a ludicrous sense of importance or overimportance, some addiction to secrecy, and whatever other dysfunctions you want to come up with. It is not about, oh, you've proved it, now we're going to, no, not at all. And so that's going to happen, and it hurts me. Now, some people like to research this stuff. They enjoy it. They just enjoy it. They like to do it. It's fun. And so they're checking out and what have you. And that's okay. But I'll be honest with you. What we need right now is for as many people as possible with great knowledge about this issue to start talking to other people and get them focused on ending the embargo. Go to the New Paradigm Institute, join the Citizen for Disclosure Project, which is a standard classic activist effort where they're getting lots of people in every state coming together and they're sending messages to their members of Congress. They're also trying to build some things, outside the United States, grassroots effort. That's fine, but grassroots effort like that can take 10 or 20 years. And so while it's important, there's more, we have much more bigger tools than that. And so basically it's adding on to the enormous amount of accomplishments that have been made in the 80 years in all sectors, which includes obviously the political developments, witnesses coming forward and everything else. But citizen stuff is okay. But to the extent that more people jump on board, the better. The more, all the people in this field, including researchers, now have access to podcasts. And they're on podcasts. Everybody's on podcasts. Okay, so fine. So yeah, if you're going to go on a podcast, you want to talk about your research, great, but make sure you spend 10 or 15 minutes talking about the fact that we need to end this truth embargo, and these are the websites to go to, and this is what you need to do, and I'm behind ending this embargo now, and let's always take advantage of every camera that we're able to get in front of, all right, and focus, at least spend some of the time clearly focused on a commitment to end this embargo. We're not going to give the government any more slack. We're not going to give it a pass. We're not going to feel sorry for it. Right? I'm more than happy to pass an amnesty law that makes everybody friggin' free of any retribution. This thing is way more important than that. I mean, they will harm us. I have no desire to harm them. All right? Whatever it takes. All right? This absolutely must be won. This prize must be won, and it needs to be won soon. Why? Well, the answer for that is straightforward. All right. The world is in chaos and decline. It is dealing with issues in places that 50 years ago there were no places. It is overwhelming. The Gen Zers out there, who are the largest now segment of the population, about over 2 billion Gen Zs, between the age of 13 and 23, they have figured out that the world's going to hell and their future is toast. And they're angry. Now, the ones in the rich countries like ours, they maybe get a little frustrated, but they got their computer games and stuff, and they got some money in a house and whatever. But most of the Gen Zs live elsewhere, and they don't have that. And so you know what they're doing? They're overthrowing governments. They've overthrown 2. There's been 6 or 7 other Gen Z revolts, all out in these other countries. And it's going to grow because of all the generations. This is the one that's going to take the biggest hit. Yes. Right? This is the one that's going to be royally screwed. My generation? Nah, right? I got a few years left, whatever. I got something to do. I feel good. What the hell? Right? The millennials kind of are already in a workspace. They got something going at least, and maybe they can kind of, get through what's coming, the AI, the whole business, the economy, the political chaos, whatever the hell. But the Gen Zs, every single child in this planet who is doing something very critical, coming of age, when so much happens that it'll help determine what's going to, life is going to be like. My coming of age was, between 18 and 21. It went bad. Believe me, it went really, really, really bad. It was in the middle of the 60s. And the anti-war movement, everything else, and it went bad. And I got through it with a little less damage than some, but I assure you, most of my regrets come from the fact that my coming of age went bad. Now, every single boy and girl coming of age in this world right now are Gen Zs. Every single one, by definition. It's obviously a tautology. Right? Every single one. And they're coming of age 18, 19, 20, while we're seeing all the stuff going on as an older man, wiser man, what we kind of know, been through some things. They're seeing it as an 18-year-old trying to figure out, could I have a family? Could I go to school? Could I have a job? Is the world even going to be here? Right? And they're not taking it well. I assure you. And so this idea, and by the way, you can't go 2 weeks without somebody in some high-end government talking about the fact we got nukes, we can use nukes. You know that. We got nukes, we can use them. Don't you know that? We got the nukes, we can do that. Right? High-end people. Yeah. And they've got the nukes. There's 13,000 of them, not counting the MIRVs. I think that includes the MIRV warheads. I think there's 13,000, whatever. And some of them are more powerful than ever. And they have hypersonic missiles. Hypersonic missiles can deliver something so fast you can't shoot it down. And how do we know that? Because Russia launched a hypersonic missile that had no warhead, that could not be shot down, and it hit somewhere in the Ukraine. And just the force of the missile was almost like a nuclear blast. I mean, it just blew. Right? That was non-weapon, but traveling, I forget, 20,000 miles. I forget what the hell it was.
Incredible.
So the Gen Zers are rightly concluding that they don't have a future. And they happen to be right, unless we do something to avoid that. And so we don't have the time to wait this out. Yeah. We have got to get disclosure, because disclosure opens some doors that we might be able to walk through and tweak some dials and this and that, make a few changes and redirect. And people say, whoa, no, we don't need disclosure for that. We could do it in the UN. We could have some very big summits, right? Lots of summits everywhere. And they'll be actually talking to each other, and there'll be positive stuff will emerge from it, treaties, things like that. And we'll start going the right direction. No, that's not going to happen. And it can't even happen. The opposite is happening, right? Disclosure is the only door we have to, is the only thing that can give us the keys to the doors we've got to pass through. Nobody has even come close to making the counter argument. Not that I would listen to it, I wouldn't. But I mean, just independently, they haven't written it up and say, oh, no, here is why we can solve all the problems now that we're facing. No ETs are involved. This is just us doing the right thing. No, I think most of them have given up. They may focus on one thing, Here is how we can save the polar bears in the North Atlantic Oceans, right? And that's good, right? Maybe save the wolves, something like, I don't know. They focus on that, God bless them. But in terms of the global reality we're in, they got nothing. Disclosure is it. And so I'm telling people, right, that if you get this, what can I say? I'm not
Again, for anybody joining us late, there are mosquitoes in the room, in the lounge, in the National Press Club. These are not spastic gestures, meaning nothing that Steve is involved in. He is methodically separating these small insects from the rest of their life, if hopefully possible.
My internet will. Oh man, there's 5 down here. Can't believe it. That's why I had them all over my legs last night. I'm not gonna. I want to kind of spray myself with the repellent stuff, which I was thinking of doing because I do have the internet tomorrow. But you had a guest cancel and you needed me, and so I'm down here, and I'm just not going back up there with 50 mosquito bites. So let's see. What I'm demonstrating here is certain fierceness. Okay. Commitment, fierceness, that is a tool. It's a good tool for activists to have. I got it. All right. And I'm prepared to, kind of do the same thing with the truth embargo, I guess you could say. Not that I'm a violent person. I'm not, though apparently when it comes to mosquitoes, I'm willing to make an exception. I'm not alone in that. Okay. So that is the other thing I wanted to add. All right. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Peter. What's on your mind?
I have a hypothetical for you, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
If things continue to advance the way that they have, first, when we use the word disclosure with the capital D, for me, we're talking about 2 separate things. One is that possible time in the future that would be coordinated with world leaders where they would all go public hypothetically at the same moment and inform their people that we are not alone, and then network with leading scientists, theologians, sociologists, anthropologists, political scientists, and move into the brave new world holding hands and trying to make something happen.
What do you mean by we, Kimasabi? That joke, right?
Yes,
right?
Of course.
Because that is not a disclosure that I talk about, and it's not possible. It'll never happen.
There is what is going on right now and what has been going on for years, and that you have been involved in from the get-go, which is a process. Every day.
That's right.
3, 7, 19 people move from the area of skeptical inquirers to people who accept this seriously because of a sighting, an experience, an intense conversation with somebody that they respect, a well-made documentary, and they're on board. We had talked years ago about the idea of how can we take this into a form that we saw in the anti-Vietnam War movement, where not only did young people get out in the streets and make their feelings known, but then their parents did. And then people like Walter Cronkite did, the most trusted journalist in America at the time. Do you see any way that as the subject continues to grow in interest, grow in safety to take seriously? Because one thing you and I can say from just attending conferences, having our hands on the pulse of the general public on this, every year, more and more people care less and less what other people think about what they think about this subject, which is a very healthy, progressive thing to happen. Do you see any circumstances by which the general public might turn out? And again, we're all fresh from the No Kings Day, where we've seen something like 7 million Americans turn out to express their feelings on certain things that are going on right now. A higher number than some expected, and probably a lower number than we'll see in the next demonstration some months in the future. Do you see any scenario that could create that, short of alien landings all over the world in no uncertain terms?
That's an easy one. The answer is no. It's not going to happen.
No.
Right? It's not going to happen. Look, I participated in some anti-war marches back in the 60s. Okay. It was a major issue. It was affecting people's lives directly. Okay. It wasn't like somebody was getting taken up in into a ship and given a physical, right? Maybe a probe or something. No, they were sent to Vietnam where they were blown up and killed. Young men, women, families destroyed. Serious, visceral. And so people go to the street for something like that. That's when you go into the street. All right. Okay. The idea that we're not alone, it's a big galaxy, there may be some ETs around, whatever. No, you don't go to the street. But there is another reason you don't go to the street. No one in the government during the entire 60s, when people were out in the street marching, ever gave an interview to the New York Times saying, why in the hell are these people out there? There is no war in Vietnam. There are no troops over there. Where did they get that information? It doesn't exist. They must be nuts. Nobody did that. All right. And so one of the reasons the truth embargo has been so successful is the government, and one of the reasons we're able to do that is the ETs have certain limitations, apparently, on their behavior. Okay. All right. They just don't land the saucer and start just grabbing people off the street for a couple of days. No, they whatever. They have their agenda. They conduct their affairs in a certain way. And the way they do that allows this truth embargo to remain in place. And there's a dynamic going on there. However, there is a connection between that dynamic, their agenda, and the nuclear issue, which I've talked about at length and will do again, which is one of the reasons why I'm very convinced that we are getting close, because they have been escalating their activity in a number of ways, which is obviously driving the process, on the earth and down below, and helping us to some degree, absolutely. But they won't cross a certain line. Now they could do it tomorrow, right? If they were to land 45 ships, in 45 different, maybe just one big area, right? Just kind of 45 ships come on down, sitting there, out there in some fields, right? People going out, press going out, filming and everything else. Some ETs are stepping outside. I'm not going to be watching. I'm going to be on X. I'm going to be on social media, looking up the accounts of every single one of these fine skeptics, right, that have been playing this game, as well as the academics that have hedged this thing over and over and over again, and seeing how they're handling it, right? That's going to be my fun. And, I'm not going to take too much pleasure in that. There's some people that, well, let's just say that it's going to be fun to see how they deal with it. I hope they'll deal with it with integrity. That would be the right move, right? Or they may just say, fuck everybody, I don't care. I did what I did, screw you. Okay, fine, that's okay. But I'm going to be doing that just for a while, right? Then we have to move past that. But I don't think that's going to happen. I believe we have to disclose first, globally, right? But there's no way you're going to get 20 or 30 leaders together to do something, like a big event, right? Not in this age. It'll leak in 20 minutes, right? And what the hell? What they're talking about this? What? No. One leader has got to grab the brass ring, the golden ring, and so far, no one has been willing to do it. 13 presidents, 13 individuals have been in the White House, 14 rather, since Roswell. 13 of them chose not to do it, and a bunch of those had 2 terms, 8 years, chose not to do it. Okay, fine. Several of them are still alive, but they're not going to step out as ex-presidents and do this. That would be ill-advised. All right. So now we have a president who could do it. And the one thing I will say about this president, which no one is going to criticize me for, is there has never been a president in the White House more inclined to do whatever the hell he wants to do and could care less what anybody thinks of it, knowing that some people are going to like it and some are not, but so what, then this one.
It's a fair point.
And so here we are, right? Kind of, slowed down just a little bit. But if anybody thinks I'm slowing down, forget about it, right? If I get some money together, if I get some significant contributions, I'm always looking for those, but I'm not skilled at it. I'm not, relentless. And I don't sell merchandise, and I don't put anything behind a paywall, never have in 30 years. I just can't bring myself to do it. That doesn't mean that others are wrong in doing that. It's just that it's the way I think about this, and the way I think about what I'm doing. I don't want to do that. That's just me. And I'm also really not good at, being relentless when it comes to money. So in any event, but if I get some money, I got projects to do, and I'll do more than I can. But others have got money, and they're moving forward, like Danny Sheehan and New Paradigm Institute and Soul Foundation and UAP Disclosure Fund and other groups that are coming together with money and funding. And you've got they have academics involved. They've got people with high-end credentials involved, people that wouldn't touch it years ago. And so, there's plenty happening, and more people than ever in the world believe this phenomenon is real. Not even close. More people than ever in the world believe that it is not human in origin.
Correct. And
more people than ever are aware that the governments of the world have not been telling the truth about it. All right. That's not hard to figure out. They haven't done any polling lately, I guess, because they don't know what the numbers are going to be, but there's been a little bit of polling, but they because it costs money. You spend your money on polling on getting somebody elected, but if real money was spent on polling again, like what is it? It's called the oh God, I can't remember the name of it. Ipsos. I think it's Ipsos. They polled the whole world about 5 years ago.
Roper?
No, Ipsos. It's an international polling entity. If they were to do something major like that, they would get numbers that would shock. All right, it's expensive. You're going to poll the whole world, but and they didn't ask the right questions. So the right questions that polled, the numbers would probably blow our minds. But that would cost millions of dollars. And again, when you say something is going to cost millions of dollars now, the idea that there aren't tons of people that could easily just do it, right? Assuming it's an important thing, it's nothing. This country is filled with people that spend millions of dollars a year on their lawn care. All right. So at any time, anyone would go, hey, let's spend $5 million and poll the entire world. The next you get these numbers. Let me put it this way. The billionaires have not taken this issue on. There's been one that did sort of okay, but then it kind of went south, but he has my absolute appreciation for trying. Another one was Rockefeller.
Yes.
He did good, but he was old and he died. But since then, oh God, they've minted so many billionaires, and any one of them has got the power to do things that would just blow this thing out. But they haven't. Here's some of the reasons. Billionaires have huge interest, and a lot of those interests affect government. And therefore, if you piss off the government, they can cause you problems. And why do you want to have problems if you're a billionaire, right? You don't need problems, okay? And so you don't piss off the government, all right? And essentially, it's a complex issue, but it's easier to give money to save the whales or eliminate malaria or something like that. I get that, and you get a lot of kudos. But getting into this issue is so much more complicated, and they've just chosen not to, by and large. But the money to end this embargo very fast is just floating all over the place. All right, they chose not to do it, and they're going to have to answer for that at some point, right? I think more and more nations are going to be judged by the choices that the richest in those nations make.
Good point.
Okay. And right now, a little dicey, but the money's there, right? So, you never know. Somebody could drop, well, actually, I've had one major funding in this time and used it as best I could, but it was complicated, and and the issue got extended and what have you. I'd like to have that happen just one more time, right? So to make it clear, disclosure could still happen at any time. The White House barriers are much lower than they've ever been. There's plenty of things going on in spite of everything else that's going on. And as other things clear up, hopefully they'll clear up.
And that is actually a perfect note to end this first hour on. Peter Robbins here with my special guest, Steve Bassett. The show is Meanwhile Here on Earth, and we'll see you back here at the top of the hour.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to research a haunted house can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unex Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com.
And we are back. Peter Robbins here. The show is Meanwhile Here on Earth, and joined this evening by Steve Bassett in Washington, D.C. Steve, a question with a setup. Oh, first let me mention to you and to our audience, Steve and I were both speakers this past Labor Day weekend at the Exeter, New Hampshire UFO Festival and Conference. It's an event that I'm involved in helping to organize every year and take particular pride in, because as far as I know, it's the one event on the UFO Paranormal Conference calendar where we in the UFO research community work with a wonderful fraternal organization, service organization, the Kiwanis International, the chapter, of course, in Exeter, New Hampshire. And we, of course, pay our speakers, put them in hotels, bed and breakfast, cover all the expenses that normally conferences would cover with speakers, but every cent of profit goes into a scholarship fund for deserving young people in that part of New Hampshire. And I don't think I told you, Steve, this past year we broke our pre-existing record and raised more than $70,000, which is going into small scholarships and incentives for an awful lot of great students and kids in the greater Exeter area. And thank you for being part of that fundraising effort.
That was my first time speaking in Exeter, and boy, did I like Exeter, New Hampshire. I'll tell you, if things were different, I think I'd be moving up there.
Yeah.
Right? It was like going back in time.
Yeah.
It was so chill. I had to come back to Washington. So
it is an archetypically beautiful New England town. For me, it's a bit like a great Currier and Ives print come to life on the main street with E.T. as your invited guest for the weekend. So a question for you. More and more since 2017 and the great, I would say, transition from our ridicule era to pretty much a post-ridicule era, whether it's the news media, academia, the world of science, the general public. It's not a subject that immediately is one that we make fun of. Conditioning is changing.
Absolutely.
As we move forward in time and maybe go through that eye of the needle where the world now knows one way or the other, we have now a generation really of news readers and personalities within the world of information on television in whatever form it comes, who are now more and more aware of the subject, some of them becoming quite schooled in the subject, possibly even doing their own homework. Let's say that we are now at that point where the announcement is made one way or the other, or they, for lack of a better term, have made their presence known in undeniable sense. We now have more and more, I'll use the phrase young people, people in their 20s, 30s, who are not only tech savvy and knowledgeable, increasingly so, in the area of UFO studies, but who are actively out there podcasting, broadcasting, speaking at conferences, building presences on major platforms like YouTube, some of them actually making a living doing this work and informing the general public. There's going to come a time when all of these people, and then the senior generation of best known ufologists, the people who came into the work writing books, doing research, doing investigation, publishing, speaking around the world, and all of these newer, information-rich young people who know how to make a presentation in front of a camera, who are going to be vying with these traditional newsreaders. And it doesn't matter whether the venue is on the left or the right. It can be Fox or CNBC. It could be Wolf Blitzer or his equal and opposite in conservative networks, who are going to be looking to take that airspace. And not that there's going to be a battle, but there will be definitely people doing their best to keep the attention on themselves and be the ones who are now looked up to as the major media people, who are either the up-and-comers in the world of UFO research and broadcasting now, or the old guard of people who are network regulars. How do you see that shaking down? Or you just see several possibilities there, Steve?
I view it simply this way. This happened. This is the way things are, right? This is the way things are. And this, I don't know to what extent we can change on this time around, though the circumstances are quite different. When it comes to activism, when you're opposing the state in a big way, right? I'm talking about high-level activism, right? And so you're trying to get something done that the state, the authority, doesn't want to get done. And there are plenty of people that support the state in this matter, and so they don't like what you're doing. and they will undermine you. They will find ways to make it hard, and it can vary. Some issues are tougher than others, and as a result, usually it's hard to get funds. You can't really make a living easily at it. And so activism oftentimes is a self-sacrifice and so forth. And you're doing something that the state is saying to everyone else is wrong. It's a mistake. It's not constructive, whatever. And in some nations, they'll do more than that. They'll put you in jail, right? Some places they'll get rid of you.
That's right.
So it's not an easy path, the activist path. The high-level people with degrees and money and so forth tend to stay out because they don't want to risk it. And so you slog around for decades and decades, and you finally break through. Now, this happened in the anti-war movement. It happened in the civil rights movement, a little less so. But when you finally break through, the mainstream world accepts it. This is the way it should be. And they start getting on board, which means that once you break through on the issue, all the academics who just didn't want to risk getting involved can get involved. The money people that didn't want to donate can now do that. The journalists that debunked it or wouldn't touch it, they can get involved. All right. And in many cases, these people have more money, more degree, more career, better resumes, because the people that often take the activist path are not individuals that are roaring in some profession or right. They're fantastic life. I'm doing this now. No, it's usually people that are not. They don't really have that, but they are passionate about issues and they get involved. And so when the mainstream comes in, they would just rather we all went away.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Good job. We'll take it from here. I've got a PhD from Harvard, so I think I'll take it from here. Though I've been denying the issue for most of my life, but hey, it's true. That's happening.
Yeah.
Also, in an issue of great size, not only amongst the newcomers with the degrees and money, but also the people in the field that really hope and to be part of this and play a role and so forth. They start competing with each other, and it gets intense. Okay, and this is happening. I'm watching it. I'm definitely being affected by it.
Yeah,
but I understand. Right, I understand, and so I say this to all of my colleagues. Some of which are doing just fine, others maybe not so much, that this is the way it is. And if you understand that, perhaps you can find a way to try to move forward with the crowd, right? I don't have any easy answers for that, but I'm sure that there are some things one can do. And the podcast and the internet makes it a little possible to stay around, okay, to keep your presence out there, no question about that. So it's a little easier. There was a time when there was nothing, right? After the Vietnam War finally ended, the Vietnam activists disappeared into the void, and nobody really. They had driven everyone crazy over this war, and so now the war was over. We would appreciate it if you just go away now, because you were right, but you were a pain in the ass. So there's that. But then as we move into the post-disclosure era, let me tell you, the competition is going to be as intense as it is right now with AI, where people are forming companies and just going crazy, working 90-hour weeks and doing everything they can because they see this as the opportunity of a lifetime. It's extremely intense, and they're competing. But that's just AI. The post-disclosure world is bigger than AI, believe it or not. And so it's going to be incredibly competitive. And those who do not have the money, the degrees, the gravitas, and the vitae, or great entrepreneurial skills, they can just rock and roll, do what I have to do. They're going to be pushed off. They're going to slough off. That's the reality of things. But here is the punchline to this. There is no reason why the mainstream world cannot at least recognize the contributions of the people that have slaved on this for the last 80 years, living and dead. Because they were right from the beginning, and they made great sacrifices. They've never committed a single act of violence as far as this movement is concerned that I'm aware of.
Yes.
Written books, they've done this, they've done that, they've been journalists, they've been so forth, and they're probably, most of them are going to die broke. But you can at least recognize them, acknowledge them. Some awards here and there, whatever. I hope they will. One of the principal things that I've tried to do, that I could do because it didn't take much money, was to honor the people in the field. That's why the X conferences were designed to do that. I gave away 40 or 50 awards.
Yeah.
I set up the memoriam section on the website to honor the dead. There's 90 or 100 people there with a photo and bio. No one else has done that. There is plenty of recognition to go around. Will the mainstream world do that? And here is why it's in the best interest of the mainstream post-disclosure world to do it. When you don't honor the people that paid the heavy price to get where you could then operate in a new paradigm, you're sending a message to a lot of people. Why do you bother? Makes it a little harder for people in the future to take on the next thing, the next major issue that nobody wants to touch, right? But if you do that, you're really encouraging people to do that. You're saying, look, this is a worthy thing. You will be respected if you're right and you succeed. I'm just saying, so I don't have that many years left, but to the extent that I have funds, you can bet that a lot of that's going to be somehow finding ways to recognize these people, to honor their work and promote them to whatever the hell. Why not? So that doesn't cost a lot of money.
It's a good time to remind people. I want to remind people how extensive your website is. And just to give the URL again, it's a real simple one, but just so it's in their minds.
Paradigmresearchgroup.org. It is still, it needs work. There's area, I became a nonprofit. I had to change the site. There's so much work there. I don't have a staff, but there are a lot of sections that are still pretty good shape. Yeah. Under the projects, you can find the print media archive. That's amazing. And then you can find in memoriam. Okay. Those two I'm just talked about. There's other sections about various things. There's some things there that look like they needed to be updated because they do. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I don't have a staff. It's the way I do it, but we'll see. There's still opportunities coming, and I'm going to try to build that up. But this is kind of where I'm at. I have not the slightest desire or ability to exit this world with a substantial estate. I got nobody to leave it to, really. I don't. And so that's out. I just want to do what basically I chose to do all the way back in 1996. I want to serve. I found a way to serve. And there are plenty of quotes out there about serving and why it has certain advantages and why it can bring things to your life that others can't do. Other things can't do. And I just want to keep serving. And to the extent I get elbowed out, well, that makes it harder to serve. The extent that the money's simply still not there, it makes it harder to serve.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, one thing you can always do, no matter how bad things get, you can always serve. one way or another. But it's frustrating when your time is getting short. You want to serve as much as possible.
Yes, absolutely true. I think sometimes back on the disclosure event that you created in 2014, or was
13.
it 13?
13.
I and anybody else that was there would, I think, repeat my thoughts of there has never been an event quite like that involving so many qualified, experienced individuals from so many backgrounds presented in such a compelling, gravitas-filled way that left such a mark. If you were fortunate enough to get that funding again, can you imagine what a remarkable event a follow-up event would be? Because we're in such a different place right now, that the National Press Club would absolutely reverberate.
Look, that cost $700,000, and so no, I can't imagine that kind of money. But let's say that kind of money turned up again. It wouldn't be that. Okay, that was a mock congressional hearing because the Congress wouldn't hold a hearing. And we've held 8 hearings, 5 of which are kind of modest, right? Just 1 or 2 people talking, and then 3 significant hearings, and that's great. One had 3 witnesses, one had 4, and one had 5.
Yep.
They lasted a half a day. The mock congressional hearing, the citizen hearing on disclosure, which you can find, it's on YouTube for free, had 42 witnesses that testified for 5 days.
Yes. On
triage, curated subjects. It is the greatest accomplishment of my life. I put it together. There were additional people that helped to do the production.
Sure.
Right, and they did a great job, and they and I acknowledge them as well. But I produced that. It was an idea that I'd come up with 10 years prior. I knew the press club well, had been there in and out, and we did it. And there was high hope that plus what followed. I mean, I delivered a full copy of to every member of Congress, 535, 10 DVD, 30-hour sets of the whole damn thing, so they could, right there if they wanted to watch it, send out the press releases, all that kind of stuff. Because I knew there was an election coming up, and I knew that one of the candidates was into the issue, had been, how would you say, connected to the issue, which I'll take a lot of credit for that. But Grant Cameron and others did the same. But as an activist, I was pretty much the lead on that, and got all kinds of coverage. Got the candidate Clinton to talk about the issue, her husband talk about the issue. Her chairman of the campaign, Podesta, they all had to go online because I was pushing the press at them, literally herding the press in their direction, because there was enough information to justify it. And they responded, and the issue was all over that campaign. That was the plan. When she lost, the plan was gone. It was zeroed out. It was that work had value in that it raised the issue. It got a lot of press. There were 400 articles written about the citizen hearing on disclosure. They're on my website too, if you want to read them. No, I'm sorry. Let me step back on that. There's been 400 articles, 600 articles written about my work since '96. I forget how many articles. It was a lot. And they're up there. Anyway, point is, so it had some value, but the great opportunity, which was the reason for the whole thing, evaporated when she lost. Now I understand. I'm only making that statement in the context of the fact that the setup was there for her to be the disclosure president. I'm not speaking to any other of her political views or how she might have ruled as a president or anything else. I'm simply saying the goal of this movement is to get the president to confirm the ET presence. It's not to get a president of a certain type that believes in certain things that I may personally like or not like. It's not about that at all. It's about to get that confirmation. This issue transcends everything else.
Yeah.
And so if you're waiting for a president that, I only want to support disclosure from a president that's like not too left, not too right, kind of just to the right of center, whatever. I'm sorry, you're missing the point here. You're not grasping the significance of all of this. And so when she lost the election, it was probably because I've never been married and therefore never been divorced or had a kid who ended up going to prison at 17 or something. It was the most upsetting thing in my life. Nothing has happened quite as traumatic as that, her losing that election. Not because she was this or that or a Democrat or whatever.
Sure.
It was not about that. It was about the fact that an enormous had happened. Work had been done going all the way back to the 1990s. It put her in a position to be the disclosure president, and enough had happened during the campaign to leave her no back door. Yeah. And I knew it was over. And so I left the country. I didn't give up my citizen. I went to the UK and stayed 7 months or something. I had a place to stay. It was cheap, and I loved the UK. And I went to London and stayed there. And recovered. Unfortunately, the issue kept moving. I knew that there was something going on that ended up being the To the Stars Academy in Arts and Science, but I didn't know the details, and it exploded in October. I was still in the UK, and it took me a while to get back. And by the time I got back, the New York Times articles had run and so forth, and things were cooking. And I'd been in, basically it was like the game suddenly got underway. I'd taken a bathroom break, and I'm up in a bathroom, like, on the upper deck of the stands. And I'm trying to get back on the field. By the time I got back in the field, the game was fully underway. And I'm going, put me in, coach. And they're going, I'm sorry, we already got a team going here. It's like game's underway. Yeah, but sit down on the bench. Maybe something will open up. It was rough, and I had to figure out how to get back involved and do what I could do. But of course, I was thrilled that it happened, and I immediately started addressing as much as I could. But I didn't get back until I think about 2.5 months after the New York Times article. Not that I couldn't post from the UK. I could, right? The one thing I did before I left was to create the Paradigm. Completely upgrade the Paradigm Research Group website, which was probably 15 years overdue, and got back. And then, of course, it all begins. All right. So I forget what the question was, Peter, but I'm sure I answered it.
One question for me, it surrounds disclosure and people who are knowledgeable on the particulars of interactions between human and non-human presences, adding to the dialogue in a way that doesn't overload the minds, the sensibilities of folks all over the world, good people living their lives, who are not only not staying focused on this subject, but have little or any awareness of it. It's one thing to look to a time when an acknowledged world leader essentially says we're not alone and we need to get used to the idea and brave new world, here we come, without folks saying, wait a minute, if what you're saying is true and we've been lied to all these years, does that mean that these rumors, these things I've heard, things that people say are true, things that are treated in the entertainment media, like UFO abductions or missing pregnancies or hybrids, are true? How do you stage disclosure in a way that doesn't overload people's circuits? How do you dig half a hole, so to say?
No, you don't. You just disclose. Okay? This is like a major issue. This is incredible. This is massive. Okay? It's like the issue transcends just about everything: politics, religion, economics. Yeah. It has impact on the future of the planet itself. the civilization, not just a country, the whole, and it's a lot. And so you just do it. Now, then you deal with what comes next. What's unusual about that, right? It's like, yeah, you deal with what comes next. Now, there have been some major wars in the 20th century. And I'm sure as those who were leading the various countries that ultimately declared war on each other, I'm sure they weren't going through a process where, how can we get this war started and not overload the people, or how can we, not get too out of hand here? No, they said, we're going to war. They declared it. And then the people in that country had to deal with it. The rest of the world had to deal with it. That's the way history works. Not that, but here's the advantage here. The world has had 80 years of indoctrination and information flow on this issue. Okay? It's hardly new. I bet if you were to go to India and walk around, you might not be able to find an Indian in countless questions that doesn't know at least what the hell UFO, OVNI, or whatever the hell they call it, in those languages. They know. If they don't know it from the research on the issue, they know it from the films, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of films with extraterrestrials in it. Yeah. The idea of extraterrestrials is virtually global, universal. It's part of the culture.
That's right.
It has been for some time, thanks to Hollywood. Hollywood has not been prepared to fund the activism at all, but by God, they made a lot of movies. Now they also made billions of dollars from those movies, so it's a consolidation of interest. But I wish they would fund the activism too. But in any event, so no, it's already there. However, you have raised the key point of all of the stuff that we know about the ET presence, and we know a lot. The most, how would you say, personal and potentially emotional is the contactee phenomenon. Okay. Now, how upsetting is that going to be? Not too much. Here's why. First of all, the total number of contactees is big. There's no way to know the exact number, but if you read it, you could easily project it out to a couple of million. Right? I mean, there's only so many saucers, right? Right? I did an analysis. It's called the contact. I think it's called the contact equation. It's up on my website, where I tried to calculate how many saucers or how many craft it would take to conduct the level of abduction we think is happening. And it's not that big a number, okay? But we're talking millions, right? So the day that the world is told that there is an extraterrestrial presence, followed by the day that the world finally knows for sure that, in fact, they have been dealing with human beings that are, we call contactees, and some of it involves rather interesting, complex engagement that's not fun, possibly traumatic, and everything else.
Yes.
Here is the first thing that you need to know. 8.4 billion people on this planet. 8.2 billion are not contactees, and they don't have a problem. Okay. Now, if in fact the contactee thing was like growing, right? It was like they're bringing in more craft, they're building more underground facilities, they're taking more and more people. Well, then people are going, when's my turn? But no. If anything, it seems to be slowing down. It could end completely with disclosure. I can make a case for that, but of course I don't have a pipeline to the ETs, but I can make a reasoned case for it. And so most of the world are being like, I feel so sorry for you. I hope it hasn't been too bad for you, but we've got some big plans for the post-disclosure world here, and got to go. All right. Now, as far as there will be people though that will be upset by it, and they will feel badly for some of these contactees, the ones that deserve to feel, the ones that should be felt badly for because they feel badly themselves, and they will be concerned that maybe this will expand, grow, whatever. They will assign certain character. Well, they will make some assumptions about ET agendas and so forth. If they're willing to do that, what are they also willing to do? And so there'll be some consternation. But the biggest problem is not that. The biggest problem is that as an issue, the politicians don't want to get within miles of it. I mean, this is not something they could deal with. Absolutely not. And so we have had to, the movement has literally had to park this issue in the living room while we pursued the activism at the dining room table. And I don't apologize for it. I've been direct about it. I've said, absolutely, this is what we have to do. Not that I don't talk about contact and abduct. I do. I've done it many times, but I don't stick it into the activist agenda per se. I put it out there, but I have not supported or done any work to try to get some contactees up on the Hill talking to members of Congress, because it's more likely to spook them. They are difficult to deal with, and you've never seen them more conflicted than now, and so we just couldn't do it. Is it fair? No, it's not. Is it necessary? Yes, it is. And the payoff is this. Speaking to all you contactees out there, please sign up for my Paradigm Research Group, our PRG updates list on my website. When disclosure comes, your day will come. Because everybody in the planet is going to want to know about ETs. Okay. And that's fine. There's some books. There's the internet. But you've been in the presence of ETs, and so they're going to want to talk to you. Oh, are they going to want to talk to you? And no more skepticism, no more deriding. They're going to be very disappointed if you won't talk to them. And so you're going to get some respect. You're going to get some attention. If you want to write a book, do it. You'll be given interviews. You will have your day. It'll go on for a while. And this stigma will be completely gone. And that's one reason to have disclosure as soon as possible. Now, not everybody had that experience with the ETs, even the ones that may have been involved in the hybrid program. But it's all subjective to a degree. But overall, it's going to take disclosure for you to become fully integrated into this issue in the world. And I will be very, very pleased, and I will enjoy it immensely to watch it happen.
You brought up a good point that reminded me that the question that I had asked earlier was incomplete, in that the role of experiencers, contactees, abductees, as opposed to activists, researchers, investigators, authors, has always been kind of skittish with the media. It's one thing to speak to somebody who's spoken to somebody or done the research, where if you're having a debate, you can refute something that they've made a point on because you're dealing with intellectual property, as opposed to somebody's experience, and you're put in a position where if it makes you uncomfortable enough, you have to, in so many words, deny their experience, call them a liar, or highly imaginative, or a new age kind of goofball, or somebody with some strange psychological agenda, or a cultist. Do you see, once we're in a post-disclosure world, a more public role for experiencers, abductees, contactees?
Sure. By the way, I'm on the net all the time. Now, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Instagram. I'm too old. They won't allow me on there. I am on LinkedIn, which is not like X. It's very different, but it's got a very high quality membership. If you know, I get a lot of smart people that contact me on LinkedIn, so I'm on there. But I'm also on X. Got 40,000 followers. And I have enough. I have 40,000 followers, which means I have more than enough stream to kind of see what's happening, right? Back in the day of John Mack, when I, had that stint there, and so I was very much kind of psyched up on the contact stuff. And I
Sure.
actually met with Bud Hopkins at his studio in New York. I know there were these various theories floating around trying to explain the contactee thing, right? There was some Harvard psychologist. It was when then you had Persinger or whatever, and they come to various things, and they're trying to account for it.
Yeah.
I don't see this anymore. I never see that. I do not see any of them popping up. So that tells me something. All right. Now, speaking to all the contactees, and the ships at sea, I think one very entrepreneurial and sharp, politically savvy contactee is going to not waste any time post-disclosure and set up a 501c4 political entity specifically to address contactee issues and their place in society politically. 501c4 can, as you know, give money to politicians and so forth, and gather members. In other words, let's say 200,000 contactees decide I'm joining that 501c4. And there are contactees out there that got into crypto early. They may say, here's 2 or 3, 4, 500,000. I see a political force of contactees in the United States, in the world, post-disclosure.
Interesting.
That's one thing, okay? They will play an important role in helping educate the public. All right? They will be interviewed constantly.
Yes.
And so that special quality that they have, they were in the presence of these ETs, is, I would want them involved in, I can imagine any number of organizations and what have you, nonprofits that would want some of them in the organization, right? Because you want their input, you want their perspective. So again, I will be surprised if post-disclosure, they're not a major, let me say, I'm just saying, I'd be surprised if they don't have a very, very positive experience that is going to help make up for all the other BS. I feel bad for the ones that didn't make it. Yeah. But I have always carried the reality of the contact phenomena in all of its forms with me through everything that I've done. And I'm they're always there. I just wish it hadn't taken so long. But this issue is tough. And so we're 80 years in since Roswell, but we're close. And there was in my memoriam section, I have a lot of people there. And some of these people that passed were more painful than others for me for various reasons. And I'm sure that the managers of Truth Embargo could give a crap about that. But I do. And one day they're going to have to provide the information, everything. They're going to provide it to us. And they will be forgiven. If even some of the worst case situations will be amnesty. They'll have a life post-disclosure. They'll be fine. This is a major issue. But there have been other major issues in the world, far more awful, in a sense, from the government standpoint, than this, far more evil than, quote, the government's engagement here. And so they'll be okay. They'll actually be better than they might imagine. And hopefully then, of course, the real post-disclosure stuff will start to unfold, where we redesign human, or certainly redesign political structures on this planet, and the way that 200 countries interact, and a whole bunch of other things, so that are absolutely common sense. They're not difficult to figure out at all, right? And actually turn things around, maybe with the help of ETs, maybe in some way or another, they may be helping to contribute to this post-disclosure. I don't think they're going to do a damn thing before disclosure. All of this could be right up the road. It could be a year or two out.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I wouldn't have said that 20 years ago. No way. I'm always talking about the prospects for disclosure. I'm always optimistic, but 1980, 97 or 2004, I'm saying, we can just be 2 years from all this. No. Now we really are that close to the acknowledgement, the confirmation, the revealing of the technology and possible open contact. It could be 2 years out. So for those of you who are thinking, it's also a good possibility someone's going to use a nuke in the next 2 years. Get behind the movement. Because, and if you're a wealthy person that could really help fund this, understand nuclear war is not going to cut you a break.
Yeah. Right?
You're screwed like everybody else. And so if you get this, fund the activist movement to end the truth embargo. Because if you think you're going to fund the diplomatic movement to get the treaties between many nations that will eventually eliminate the nukes, forget about it, right? It ain't going to happen because we'll have that nuclear war before it even gets rolling, okay? And we're not even close to that now anyway. And so the truth embargo, it has significant potential impact on the interest of everybody, including the most famous, the wealthiest, but most of them, virtually all of them, with the exception of the odd, actress or actor that comes out and says, I saw a UFO once or whatever. In terms of actually supporting the movement, no. I'm suggesting they may want to rethink that. It's in the best interest of them. It's in the best interest of the poorest people on this planet. There is nobody on this planet, and there's 8.3 billion, who could not benefit from disclosure in the post-disclosure world. Nobody. Tell me something else that you could say that about.
That's a good question. Steve, I know we're not here to just speculate wildly on the nature of these other intelligences, but over the decades that you've been involved in this work, myself as well, we, at a certain point, we can draw deductive reasoning. We can make educated guesses about who they are, why they do what they do. Is it fair to say, in your thoughts, do you feel that we're dealing, number one, with a plethora, an assortment of other intelligences who come and go with impunity?
No, I got a yes on that one.
Okay. And that some of them, for reasons, again, we can only make educated guesses about, I believe, are in a relationship with humanity, with this planet, that may even predate humanity's existence on this planet, and that they have a stake in this blue-green little marble shooting through the cosmos at 30,000 miles an hour that we're unaware of. And part of why we're in this relationship, or they're in this relationship with us, is we are, as the host creatures, as the most advanced creatures, as the most powerful ones, we're doing a pretty terrible job of shepherding our home. In fact, we're destroying it. We know that there's a great deal of part of the lore, the legend, the mythology, and the reality of what abductees and experiencers are told, information they're given about the destruction of the planet, and by extension, enrolling people who have interfaced with these beings with the message that we need to take better care or it's all going to be lost. I guess the question is, ultimately, do you feel that our differences in perception about their activities, are they good, are they bad? Wrong question to ask, but the question that's most often asked, because that's in our nature, that it's about our perception of them and bringing everything we bring to that experience, that it's negative or positive, or that indeed there is a negative and positive here, and we're dealing with, in that sense, two different, very divergent groups or representative groups of the wider field. Does that make any sense as a question?
Peter, don't take this personally. But let me, because it's too much. Okay, let's narrow it down. Let's get down to the basics there, because those basics are in your question. All right, just simple common sense. And by the way, it's amazing how well common sense could serve anybody that wants to understand this phenomena or understand the history. You don't have to get wild and crazy. Just a little common sense will get you most of where you need to go. All right. Prior to the emergence of a pretty advanced a being that had the ability to rapidly develop substantial mental capabilities, not only in terms of thinking, but also in terms of using the hands and everything else. In other words, what we call a sentient being. Their interest in this planet would have been basically research. Just go back thousands and hundreds of thousands, go back a million years. You know, the planet has got a lot of animals and a lot of plants and a lot of water and climate changes and whatever. It's an incredible research area. I can't imagine any advanced species that does research or is trying to understand the galaxy or the universe would not want to check in. Take samples, do research, whatever. It's exactly what we would do, right? It's what we did on our own planet, right? You find another continent, what are you going to do? Research. But when the Homo sapiens sapiens turns up, which I personally believe, and I can't prove it, but I'm going to put my money down that one of the reasons we developed was that the ET selected one of the Homo species, of which there were far more than we know. I mean, we keep finding more. Or I forget, when I was reading archaeology, I don't know, 40 years ago, it was 2 or 3 or 4. Now there's like a bunch of them. These are Homo species that didn't make it. Right? We did. And I think it's because of an intervention. I'm down with that. The ETs deliberately intervened because they wanted one of those Homo species, not more than one. Imagine if there were 2 separate sentient species on this planet. Just imagine that. They really didn't look much like each other, and they had very different DNA. No way. One. Okay? There can be only one. And so, boom, off we go. Well, at that point, 300,000 years ago, if they did that, then that says that they believe that having a sentient, a world of our robust life capability should have a sentient species that could develop into a technological species and learn and do, and that it's a pretty admirable goal. And would they have checked in from time to time to see how we're doing? Probably. And as we got more and more advanced, more frequently, did they turn up in ancient times according to ancient aliens? I think they did. Yeah. Is the evidence rock solid? No. But is it definitely leaning that way? Yes. Right? But then the inevitable takes place, and we reach levels of intellectual power. I mean, collectively, I think going back, 100,000 years, there was the odd super genius, just like there is now, except if you're a super genius 100,000 years ago, what exactly are you going to do? You're going to do something. You're going to help advance things. But once you get to a certain point, you have collective genius. And so collective genius shaped the 20th century into the 21st century, and we have an accelerating technological trend that's virtually vertical in all respects, good, bad, and ugly.
Right.
Now, that is a turning point. Okay, I don't know when the, quote, ultimate turning point was.
Right. It
wasn't in 1860. It wasn't the invention of the car. I think it was the breaking of the atom. When they cracked the atom, the ETs would have known exactly what was going to happen after that. And so from that case forward, not only was atomic physics developing, but all kinds of other areas of science and technology were advancing. In other words, that collective genius was just, and so what you saw in the 20th century was the supercomputer, or the equivalent of AI now, manifested by the collective genius of humans that were able to work together, interchange stuff, whatever, and just boom, off they go. Well, now we're about to enter an age of a new kind of collective genius, which is in some ways more powerful than that one. And we saw what that one did in the 20th century. What's it going to do in the 21st century? Meanwhile, the technological trends have created all kinds of problems for us, existential and what have you. It's been a hell of a ride. And if the ETs have a vested interest here, if they care at all about what they may have launched 300,000 years ago, it doesn't shock me that they're starting to show up in a major way virtually as this starts to hit critical mass, which is around the mid-20th century.
I used to think sometimes that we were somebody's graduate experiment for their PhD that had gone horribly wrong, and they were coming back to ameliorate the situation and try to get a better grade out of their instructor. Stanton Friedman, I think, with a slightly light heart, used to speculate that this is where they sent their residents convicted of crimes to serve their time. You do 10 years on Earth and see how much you appreciate being here when you come back.
Or if it's 3,000 years ago and you wanted God time, you want to feel like a god, go to the Earth. They treat you like a god there, I'll tell you. You spend about a year, maybe 10 years, go back to your old profession. But I appreciate the comic shtick, but let's just talk about what we know for fact. Okay, they have craft that are antigravitic. They may come from other stars, which means they've transcended the time-space problem.
Yep.
They take people and do genetic work with them. They create hybrids. All right. They turn off our nukes. They don't blow things up.
Yes.
They don't eat babies. They do take blood and materials from certain animals. Not humans, as far as they know, though, of course, in the realm of this whole thing, everything is potentially in play. And so you've got a segment that are basically saying that they're doing the same thing to us they do with the cattle. They haven't proved it yet. I'm not totally throwing it out, but let's just say that it's not profoundly obvious. So we know that. They communicate with contactees. They communicate with people outside the ships. They communicate with children. They have a consistent messaging that they do and have been doing for some time. It's been turning up through endless research.
Yeah.
Messaging about warnings of our future situation, destruction, chaos, whatever. Which is sometimes interpreted as environmental, sometimes interpreted as post-nuclear, but it's all bad. They could be projecting, I don't know, sitcoms from their world into our minds. Hey, this is what like a sitcom is there. Here's what we stream on our planet, right? They don't do that. They consistently put these messages in. They are fully telepathic. We know that. We're also discovering that telepathy, which means that telepathy is real. That's fine, but that's them. Now we're finally learning, I say not learning, it's finally getting out, thanks to Diane Hennessy Powell and some others, and been put under a new term that is just like UAP to UFO, truth embargo to UFO cover-up and so forth, psionics, so it doesn't have the stigma attached to it. Oh, hello there, my child. Nice to see you. Nice to join us. That telepathy is real and humans can do it. And she's proving it, which is very profound. That's why I got her into the contact in the desert. And she had multiple standing ovations. Because if the government, which now can't stop it, but it has prevented it, the government has gone to tremendous lengths to make sure that the psionic type research they were doing doesn't get out, though eventually it was going to kind of get out. And they allowed certain research programs to continue at Stanford and Princeton, but eventually they got pushed out into the private sector. They didn't want this, whatever. They've tried to hold it back, but like everything else, it was like holding back the tide. And so it's about to get confirmed that telepathy is real. And what does that do immediately? It validates all of the contactees that said they were telepathic, which validates them being contactees, which is another reason why keeping this truth embargo going is just stupid, right? Okay, so they're telepathic. We know that. and they can communicate with us. And apparently they are. And because they're telepathic, there's justification to think that CE5 type events and other calling ins actually work, right? So that's a lot that we know. We know they have bases here, right? Because we see them coming and going out of mountains, out of the ocean. We don't see them come out of the seabeds, but if we went down there, probably would. So they've got bases. Maybe they're on the other side of the moon. I doubt it. Why would you want to be on another moon of Jupiter when you can just have an underground base here that nobody's going to find? And so we know that.
Or underwater.
Well, under the seabed. Forget underwater. They're not going to do underwater, under the seabed. So we know that. We know they can walk through walls.
And believe it or not, Steve, we are out of time.
My God.
I know, a missing time experience yet again. Always a pleasure, my friend. Stay well. Please keep doing what you're doing. And where can people see you next live?
Well, first of all, I just want to mention that in spite of my efforts, my exterminating efforts, I've got at least a half a dozen mosquito bites on my legs, but as it happens, I have a tube of steroid cream up in my office, which has a name I can't even pronounce. And I'm going to lather that on, and let me tell you, it really works. So enough of that. ParadigmResearchGroup.org. I have a donation section. I have a free newsletter or a free updates list, which I'm about to revitalize. Okay. I have links to other organizations like the New Paradigm Institute and the State of the World Forum, which has been put together recently and coming soon, and other organizations, Soul Foundation, which is going to be holding a major presentation in Italy, late Maggiore. There's a possible other major conference that I can't mention quite yet, but it may happen. It's huge. Okay. And Paradigm Research Group is my home. Come visit, sign up. I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Steve Bassett. Peter Robbins here. Meanwhile, here on Earth, stay well, stand up for what you believe in, and whenever possible, be kind. See you next week.